What's up, y'all? Welcome to 30-Second Sermons. So, a friend of mine posted a verse the other day, and I've been reading on it and meditating on it, and I looked into it a little bit deeper today. And something I like to do when I get a good verse is I like to look at the chapter that it's in. I like to get a little bit of context of what's going on. And so I read a little bit into it and I looked it up, and then it led me to more verses, right? That's usually what kind of happens. So I want to read the verse to you, and then I'm going to read a few verses before and a few verses after. And then we're going to kind of put it in context a little bit and talk about it, and then I'll let you get back on with your day. The verse is Ephesians 5, verse 11. It says this. It says, "Take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them." Expose them, right? So this is out of the NIV. And man, I got hounded on a while back for the NIV. Anyway, I don't just read the NIV for anybody that's listening to this. I just like to read from the NIV because it's closer to how I speak. So I looked it up in another version, and it didn't say expose, it said reprove or reprove probably. So looked at what reprove meant, and what it meant was still expose. Expose can be like, it can come across wrong. So it's not just to call them out and be a jerk about it. It's actually, reprove means to, or reprove means to bring it to light, to correct them, but in a loving way. And I want to touch on that a little bit. See, the loving way that they mean doesn't always mean it's going to be all ta-ta. For those of you who aren't Cajun French, ta-ta means to baby, to coddle. So it's not always going to be, you're not always going to be coddled. It's not going to be how you want to hear it. It's not going to be what you want to hear. But when somebody comes to you and they're exposing something about you, and I mean like coming to you personally, not attacking you on Facebook in front of everybody, or in public yelling at you. I mean actually pulling you to the side and being like, "Hey man, look, you're caught up in something right now, and it's not good for you. It's not good for your family. It's not good for whatever. But mostly it's not good for you, right? And this is why, and I wanted to tell you about it because you might be in it so deep you don't even know what's going on anymore." That's just a small example. It doesn't always work that way, but you got to know this person, okay? This isn't somebody you just run up to out of the blue. So anyway, that's doing it in love. It's pulling them off to the side and really trying to talk with them and reason with them. Now, Jesus did say to his disciples when he sent them out into the world to make disciples of other nations and to go and spread the gospel, he did say that when you get to a town and you are not welcomed, then you dust your feet and go to the next town. And that's the hard part whenever you're trying to help somebody and call them out or expose them or reprove them. It's hard to find that time when it's time for you to say, "Hey, you know what? They're not getting it. I need to back off." An old pastor friend of mine used to say that you can love people. Sometimes you can love them from a distance. So anyway, I want to read a couple verses after it says this. Well, let's start in verse 10, and I'm just going to read through verse 14, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. I got kind of off on a tangent there. So, starting in 10, "Carefully determine what pleases the Lord. Take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them. It is shameful even to talk about the things that ungodly people do in secret, but their evil intentions will be exposed when the light shines on them. For the light makes everything visible. This is why it is said, 'Awake, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will give you light.'" So, what got me on this one was the "Awake, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will give you light." That sounded like it had to have been something from another verse in the Old Testament. So I started looking up and doing a little bit of research, and I found a few verses Not that I just flipped to these verses, right? I looked it up on the internet, but that kind of tie into that saying. And I'm going to read you what the verses are. I'm not going to read the verses to you because I just wrote them down. You can look them up. But there's several verses. There's Isaiah 51:17, Isaiah 52:1, Isaiah 60:1, Malachi 4:2, and Romans 13:11. And all those verses in some way, shape, or form say to awake or to arise, right? And it kind of made me think about how God calls us to be in a relationship with Him, right? You hear Him speaking to you in some way, and I don't always mean an audible voice. Maybe you hear an audible voice, but He's always calling out to us. He's always hollering for us to wake up, to arise, to get out of the funk that we're in. Me and my wife were talking today, and it's funny because she's my best friend, and we can talk about anything. And we happened to start talking about past relationships and just how other people made us feel. And I spoke to her and told her, said, I've been in pretty bad relationships where I've just totally lost myself, and it's like I could hear something inside of me saying, "Get up, get out. This isn't you. This isn't for you." And when I read this today, it kind of brought it all together. So the thing is this. I'm gonna try to sum this up for you because I think I jumped around a lot here, but I want to sum this up. I want to try to tie this together. And it says, take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them, right? So there's a few reasons why you expose them. One is because hopefully you care about this person. You don't want them doing whatever it is they're doing. The other thing is accountability. Sometimes we got to call these things out to where we ourselves don't get caught up with it. Otherwise, you ever heard that saying or seen that illustration where you're trying to help somebody? They say something about somebody's drowning and you go to rescue them, that it's almost better if they're knocked out because 9 times out of 10 they can pull you in the water and you can both drown. It's kind of like that, depending on the situation this person's in that you're exposing or that you're reproving. So you got to be careful not to allow yourself to get pulled down. The other thing is this, it says, but their evil intentions will be exposed when the light shines on them. Now the light, of course, is Jesus. He's the truth. He's the light of the world. He is the truth. He is the only way to God. I don't care what any other religions say. Jesus Christ is the only way to God, is the only way for salvation. And light and dark cannot exist at the same time. They cannot exist in the same space. The light will always overtake the dark. And it's important that when we speak to somebody and that we're trying to correct them, that we correct them with truth. We don't just correct them with how we feel, or we can't, on the flip side, we can't really worry about how we're going to make them feel, because they're going to be upset. They're not going to like the fact that you've just corrected them. But again, this is for people that you know. This is for people that are either in the Christian faith or thinking about being in the Christian faith, or maybe it's your family member or whatever. But we can't be afraid to approach these people because, quite frankly, it's their soul that's on the line. And if you really care for somebody, you'll give them the truth. So don't be afraid to speak truth. The other thing is this, is that a real fool, thinks they know everything. They act smart and they just act like they know what they're talking about all the time. And when they get confronted with some actual facts, they a lot of times start with name calling or lashing out. And I want to encourage you to know that that's probably going to happen whenever you try to call somebody out, and whenever you try to expose what evil they're doing, whatever it is. They may lash back out at you and make you feel like it's your fault, or you're the one that caused this, or it's none of your business, or whatever they may do. That's a very narcissistic train of thought. And some people are really good at being narcissists. Some people are just angry narcissists. So be careful for that as well. Don't put yourself in a bad situation. But we should always speak truth. And I think that's really the big deal that I get out of this verse and the verses around it is truth. We have to speak truth. We have to not be afraid to tell the truth, even when we think we're going to get in trouble, or not so much trouble, but somebody might be upset with us. We still got to speak the truth. Hope this was helpful to you guys. This is just kind of a condensed look of how I look at a verse sometimes and go through it, and what it makes me think about and how I go about looking into it. So, man, I appreciate y'all checking this out. If y'all got anything out of this video, do me a favor. Hit the like button, comment, most importantly, share. Y'all have a good one, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.